Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hope everyone is doing okay this morning. It's 1:47 in the morning here. I hope everyone is good. Let me check my volume before I take off. But by the way, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support it through PayPal or Patreon. At this point, I'm remonetized, so there's that. Also, patron appreciation is going to be tomorrow. I'm thinking tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think that'll be decent. All of you put your things at the bottom of this video, but I realized at the last minute that it's not just patrons who are going to watch this video. I guess I'll put something on Patreon, but I would say I'll put a post on Patreon, and immediately after this video, if there's a faster way to do that, yeah, please put your post, better yet, put your ideas at the last video. The last video that's there. I always say put it on the last patron appreciation video, because at that point I can just go to the video and I can see it. So on the last patron appreciation video, please put in what you want to talk about potentially tomorrow, and we can go from there. All right. I am going to give you a warning on this. I don't know why anybody would need a warning, being adults, but just in case there are some of weaker among us in regards to what they can listen to and what they can hear, I will give that warning, and I will give that warning now. So I've been following the Jamal Khashoggi case. I think part of it has to do with, if I'm being honest, the woman who he wanted to be his wife. She stood out there while he was being ripped to bits, all the while thinking that he was going to come out any moment, and that they were just kind of the bureaucratic snafu that was keeping him in. I have to think to myself, what the hell was he thinking, and what was she thinking, and what was he thinking knowing that she was out there? Like, God, that's a tough one. That's a vicious act. The murdering of all the Yemenis is a vicious act. So don't misunderstand me don't misunderstand me at all. But I think it's something about one man where you can look at the one face, where the faces aren't blurred by there being thousands of them. It's one guy. And there is one woman that is grieving for that one guy. And he was going to the consulate for love. Now, this is not me making him into something that he wasn't. He was putting out stories against the Saudi royal family, a royal family that he worked for. And arguments are being made that he chose the wrong pony, meaning Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman essentially started to consolidate power, and in consolidating power, he was able to lock up, imprison, torture, and brutalize the other crown princes and accrue power into this almost totalitarian state under himself. So even though there's a king, the belief is that the power is being wielded by that prince. The argument here is that I've heard was that Khashoggi essentially picked the wrong pony in this case. Fair enough. I've never tried to make him anything more than what he was. My argument was that he was just ripped apart. And yes, I'm against the Saudi Arabia, so there's a bias there. But bias aside, the reality of it is that this guy went to the consulate in order to marry the woman that he loved, and while he was there, within a few seconds of him arriving, set upon and ripped to shreds, with her sitting in the car waiting for him to come back up. That is just brutal. That's just brutal. Let's go into the story. There's new details that emerged of what took place once he got into the embassy, and this is not for the faint of heart. Jamal Khashoggi's news. First, his fingers were cut off, then his head. They don't hide it. They don't sugarcoat it. This is essentially what took place. How did they know this? Turkey released the recording, at least to the Turkish media. His killers were waiting when Khashoggi walked in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul 2 weeks ago. While his fiancée Hadis Chingiz, I'm pronouncing that miserably wrong, assumed he was tangling with bureaucracy, Khashoggi, a leading critic of the Saudi regime, was in fact being killed in the worst way imaginable. After he failed to reappear, Chingiz said she felt responsible for him. I have this strange feeling like I have failed to look after something so dear, she added. God, that sucks. That sucks. In fact, for 7 long minutes, shortly after 1 p.m., her fiancé was tortured and hacked to pieces with a bone saw while still alive. He was then beheaded by members of a 15-man hit squad who had flown in from Riyadh on private jets to murder him before his dismembered body was carted off in plastic bags to be dissolved in acid. It's like something in a movie. Within 2 hours of killers, believed to include Saudi Arabian intelligence officers and Royal House of Saudi bodyguards, were gone, and a cleaning team was brought in to scrub and repaint the blood-stained crime scene. The alleged details of Khashoggi's barbarous death have emerged from the descriptions of a highly disturbing audio recording given to the Turkish media on Wednesday by a senior government official, and on the same day the names and the photographs of the murderers were published in a Turkish newspaper. Khashoggi had first attended the Saudi consulate in Istanbul 4 days before he was killed when he was told to come back for the wedding documents. They set him up. Come back. We'll have our hitman squad here for you in those 4 days. This appears to have been a ruse to allow the Saudi authorities sufficient time to arrange his brutal execution. When he returned to the consulate, he was shown to the office of the Saudi consul, Mohammed al-Otabi. There, he was seized almost immediately by agents who began to beat and torture him. This was too much for the consul, who reportedly could be heard on tape saying, "Do this outside! You will put me in trouble!" This provoked a dark response from the agents. If you want to live when you come back to Saudi Arabia, shut up. At some point, Khashoggi, believed to have been dragged from the consul general's office to the table to the study next door. There, he was tortured and his fingers were cut off, one by one. His horrendous screams of pain were so loud that they were heard by a lower story by a witness. The source said the recording later revealed that the journalist was drugged and killed before a Saudi forensic expert advised his colleagues to listen to music on the headphones as he dismembered the body. This would help diffuse tensions created by such a macabre task. The chief executioner is alleged to have been Salam Muhammad al-Tabagi, head of forensic evidence for the Saudi General's Security Department. While his sobriquet is Dr. Death, al-Tabagi's official title is president of the Saudi Fellowship of Forensic Pathology. According to the local media, he has now been relieved of his post at the consulate. They came to kill him, not interrogate him, insists the consul witness who heard his screams. It is considered highly unlikely that this execution squad would have acted this way. They did, had they not been sanctioned by Mohammed bin Salam, known as MBS, Arabia's 33-year-old crown prince. He is the architect of the Saudi-led war crimes in Yemen. Well, Obama gave him the green light for that, which cost more than 16,000 civilian lives, and it emerged this week that he once sent a bullet in an envelope to persuade a land registry official to help him seize land. There he is. All the tech giants want to work with this guy. Got a brutal killer. He was a brutal killer before this. But Lord knows, if you had any doubts. The Crown Prince objected to Khashoggi on different grounds. In his eyes, the journalist was a former Saudi royal insider who had committed the cardinal sin of turning against the regime and repeatedly speaking out against it. This qualified him for the worst form of retribution. They didn't want to talk to him when they got there. They wanted to murder him and torture him. On Wednesday, Khashoggi's final column was published posthumously in the Washington Post. In it, a man who had resigned himself to self-imposed exile from his homeland bemoaned the lack of freedom of expression in Saudi Arabia. Arab governments have been given free rein to continue silencing the media at a decreasing rate. They have also arrested local reporters, he wrote. The Arab world is facing its own version of an iron curtain imposed not by external actors, but through domestic forces vying for power. He mentions his dear friend and prominent Saudi writer, Saleh al-Sheikh, who wrote one of the most famous columns ever published in Saudi press. Khashoggi pointed out he unfortunately is serving an unwarranted 5-year prison sentence for supposedly comments contrary to the Saudi establishment. He went on to address concerns that actions such as those no longer carry the consequence of a backlash from the international community. Instead, these actions may trigger condemnation quickly followed by silence. It was just over a year ago in 2017 that Khashoggi wrote his first column in the Washington Post, in which he revealed that he was taking himself into supposed exile. Here's the guy, the doctor who was chopping off fingers and heads. I'm gonna put this here. This is just fucking brutal. This is completely brutal. And like I say, you have these tech giants who still want to work with this guy. Bad deal, folks. Real bad deal. Trump is jealous of Saudi's riches. That might be true. Here's the thing, though. Whether he's jealous of Saudi's riches or not, the United States and Saudi Arabia had an arrangement. That arrangement goes back, if I'm not mistaken, to the 1940s. We will give you protection if you give us oil. And 2, you maintain a certain degree of dominance in that region, provided you're paying attention to what we're telling you. Meaning, you're a fiefdom. You're our blunt object against nationalism in that region of the world. Now, this sounds like a Saudi prince got too big for his britches, and Donald Trump essentially, if you notice, Donald Trump said this guy wouldn't last 2 weeks without us, and he needs to lower the price of oil and all this other stuff. And in this case, the brazen murder of a guy. The person who called this would never get called to justice, which is MBS himself. And all of those people took a fall in order to keep him, let's say, untouched. Either way, this was a brutal killing. This is a brutal killing. All right, I'll end it here. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. Thanks all.